Hi, I'm Elena, and I'm going to be talking about my quarterly plan for habit sourcing applications. So, habit sourcing applications have a twofold goal, and those goals are enhancing a user's habit building experience via basically making it more like customized, more personal to their environment and their surroundings. The second goal is gathering good data about a user's surroundings that will prove useful to some sort of community, be it the user's community itself, scientific researches, etc. And generally, what I define useful data as would be high fidelity data about relevant subjects. And then striving for both of these goals can lead to a bit of tension because some designs that I might create might favor one goal over the other, and technically the user's experience should be prioritized, but I believe it's possible for both high fidelity data and a solid user experience to be present. Here's my research question for the quarter. I actually broke it down into two questions. How can we use scaffolded interactions in order to collect high-fidelity data about objects? And what sorts of interactions can infer particular physical attributes of objects? My current design argument is asking a user to perform a physical action that ties more directly to the storyline or that differs from prior physical actions will lead to higher user engagement in habit building. Alright, so I have two main goals for the quarter. These are basically to iteratively test a variety of scaffolded interactions in order to determine whether the design argument I just said is true or false. What I hope to do is to break down that design argument into smaller components and create interactions that can directly validate those. And then also one of my stretch goals would be to prototype and implement scenarios with multiple layers of scaffolding or multiple scaffolded interactions per layer. So what that might look like is, say we have a tree that we want to gather more data about. Multiple layers might be like, first we find out this is a tree, then we find out this is some sort of coniferous tree, and then we find out another fact about it. The one that follows the and or would be more like after we find out that it's a tree, maybe we want to know whether it's like a red tree and whether it has like, what do you call them? Like burrs at the same time. Like perhaps we want multiple scaffolded interactions in one layer, and then we go forward from that. Okay, so for beneficiaries outside of myself, this is what my quarter goals will do. End users will hopefully walk away with a more context-aware, personalized, and varied habit-building experience. For future researchers, I hope to give them some sort of validation of what types of scaffolded interactions actually work for users. And then for others that will build off my technology in DTR and otherwise, I want to prototype multiple layers of scaffolding. Okay, design goals. So here's my user problem. I basically broke it down into a nice scenario. As we know, every new year, a lot of people like to create habits or try to build some sort of habit to improve their lives, but making that habit last can be very difficult. And where current apps for habit building fall short is that they rely on a small subset of static experiences, as in like audio files, which quickly leads to user disengagement or boredom. And here's the same design argument that I stated previously, and this I think will address that user problem. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about my design process. I think that a reasonable goal would be to test at least one scaffolding interaction per sprint, and that would allow me to iterate relatively quickly in terms of figuring out like what sorts of scaffolding interactions work best for users. And then some user testers that I can rely on would be DTR students, friends, and then considering it's winter in Chicago and people aren't very motivated to run outside once the temperature drops below freezing, the prior Habitsourcing researchers told me that they used Reddit in order to contact people in warmer areas in order to run outside and test whatever interactions they were building. So I might end up relying on that network as well. Okay, so technology goals. My main focus right now, which will mostly fall into Sprint 1, would be migrating from the parse database to another database. I've been talking to Leisha and Youngsung about this, and Leisha sent me some guides to run some sort of personal database, it looks like. So I'll be working on that. And then, as I previously mentioned, other sprints, the technology goals will align with my design argument. And then my stretch goal, as I mentioned a few times, would be to prototype habit building experiences with multiple layers of scaffolded interactions. Okay, so this is the same research question as I brought up before. And then just to follow up a bit on that question, why it's important, here I'll go back to it, is because I have yet to validate which scaffolded interactions work and why. I got some preliminary data on this last quarter, but nothing conclusive, and also my hypothesis can be found within my design argument. I hope to prove that design argument by breaking it into smaller sub-design arguments and by iteratively testing multiple scaffolded experiences.